Calling from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. It's a Thursday edition. We're glad you're along for the ride. We've got a good show lined up for you today. We're going to kick it off here shortly with Terry Norvelle from College Sports Today, discussing the status of college football. Second half of the show, we're going to have Nathan Whitaker, former player at Duke, under Coach Spurrier, wrote Tony Dungy's book and Tim Tebow's book. We'll talk to him a little bit about his career and what he's got going on now. But we're going to jump straight to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by Terry Norvelle from College Sports Today. Good morning, Terry. How are you?
Shane, doing well. Ready to rock and roll. How are you guys?
Plugging away. Some news broke yesterday in the SEC. Mississippi State comes out and says if football is played, there will be no tailgating in Starkville. Man, I just that really ruffled some feathers, I know. And how do you have college football with no tailgating?
Yeah, good luck. Policing that. I mean, that's going to be hard. It's tough. I mean, I'll take it if that's how we have to do it. But man, I tell you, obviously fans in the stands, bands playing, tailgating, apple pie, Chevrolet, hot dog, everything. Boy, that's Americana college football tailgating. I mean, and Lord knows the state of Mississippi, they know how to tailgate too, man. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and I have some friends that are obviously Mississippi State alumni, and
Sure.
I texted with them yesterday, and believe it or not, they are calling and canceling their tickets.
Is that right? And then, switching over, obviously we're talking about Mississippi State, but obviously Ole Miss with the Grove, and that's famous. Mississippi State baseball, that left field lounge, they started that tailgating outside baseball stadiums and all. But yeah, it's a tough time. Again, if that's the only way, if that's one of the hurdles we have to cross to get college football played, okay. And I think people would cooler heads would prevail. But my goodness, outdoors, sunshine, you would think that would be something that would be low on the priority list. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So Terry, let's talk a little college football. We don't know where we stand. I want to say the conference, aren't they going to make a decision here towards the end of July?
Yes, Commissioner Sankey said the SEC, anyway, he thinks they're going to come out and make a definitive end of July, like you said, Shane. My read was that Sankey saying, hey, man, we're going to watch Major League Baseball and the NBA. They're both trying to get going that final week of July, the same week. I think that's key. I think those two sports are key, not to discount golf, and I think soccer's about to get going, but if Major League Baseball and the NBA get started, I think the NFL certainly gets started the following month, and then college football would go. But I think Sankey has pretty much, without saying it, he's going to monitor Major League Baseball and the NBA. They're trying to kick it all off that final week of this month and go from there. And, Shane, he's got to. There's got to be a line in the sand date. You can't really say, well, we're going to abort this thing August 25th. You know what I'm saying? You can't go that deep. You can't have your college guys, as you know. I mean, camp, even for a quarterback's not fun. I can't imagine that's fun out there for 3 weeks in the August sun. You can't send those guys out there for 3 weeks and then the line in the sand date be August 20th. You've got to make there's got to be a line in the sand date coming up pretty soon, I would think.
Yeah. When you look at, we were talking this before the show started, whether they play on time, delay the start, do they move college football to the spring? My personal opinion is I don't know when it's going to be played, but it has to be played at some point during the school year. Because if it's not, and I've talked about this for the last few weeks on my show, not only will athletic programs around the country go under, I think many of the institutions around the country will go under.
Yeah, excellent points. And don't ever forget, don't discount these schools, these programs missed that basketball money already. That basketball money that was missed is huge. That is a massive amount of money that did not go into the bank accounts of these athletic departments, which, by the way, a lot of that money finds its way to the other side of campus, if you will, right? A lot of that athletic money, athletic profit money gets moved over to the other side of campus. You're right, Shane. Smaller schools, smaller programs, group of five. I don't know what some of these group of five, smaller, big schools, but smaller programs. I don't know what they're going to do missing missing that money. It's going to be tough. And you and I talked before the show as well. I don't know if enough people realize if you scrap football and lose all that income, that's going to affect the gen pop student. You can't tell me that these schools aren't going to start whacking faculty. If you whack faculty, you whack course loads that are offered. If you whack that, it's going to have a trickle-down effect, I think. When you see schools that are coming out and knocking off 15% of their athletic budget, I don't think that's the only cut. That's the athletic side of that school, right? I think you're also going to see I call it the other side of campus, athletics and then the other side of campus. I think you're going to see other side of campus cuts as well, because when you see the schools, Washington came out recently and said they're whacking 15% of their athletic budget. That's the athletic world of that school. They're going to have to whack some more on the general side of that school as well, I think.
Yeah, no doubt about it. At Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. We're speaking with Terry Norvelle on the Titan Tomorrow hotline from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. So Terry, let's talk some football. Let's just assume we're going to be playing on time. A lot of the publications have come out lately, Athlons, Lindy's, Field Steel, all that kind of stuff. A lot of them are very high on the Florida Gators. Many of them have the Gators play in Alabama and Atlanta. Your thoughts on the progress that Dan Mullen has made and what this team has a potential to do this year?
And obviously, you're asking the gap with Georgia. Let's get it broken down closer. The gap that Florida's trying to close on Georgia. It's set up for Florida. Florida needs 2020. Obviously, we all need the season. Georgia wants to play the season, but Shane, if the 2020 season was aborted for whatever reason, it would hurt Florida much more than Georgia. It's set up well. That Georgia schedule is nasty. Keep in mind, that schedule flops next year. Georgia has Alabama this year. They drop Bama and pick up Arkansas next year. Florida has Ole Miss this year. They drop Ole Miss and pick up Bama next year. That's tough. The second part of the schedule, I think, that sets up really well for Florida. This year's LSU team, I think, is going to take a bit of a step back. By next year, Florida will catch LSU, I think, back to being big bad LSU on the road. It'll be in Baton Rouge. Boy, the schedule couldn't set up a lot better for Florida. I think Florida's my pick in the East. I think Florida's got several advantages. I think the defense. The defensive side of the ball, Shane, I think Florida is much closer to Georgia defensively than a lot of people point out. Georgia's going to be good. I think Florida's going to be really fresh on defense. I think the Gators are going to be really fresh on defense. I think things now. Georgia may still be better than them. They may, if we play in 2020, Georgia may win. But boy, it sets up well. There's a lot of things that are in Florida's favor if they play the 2020 season.
Yeah, I agree. Talk Alabama. A lot of people are high on Alabama. Obviously, they go 11-2 last year, and that was just a horrible season going 11-2.
Yes.
Mac Jones, who's from the Jacksonville area, played there at Bowles. Are you surprised that, first of all, that he signed with Alabama? And second, he played pretty well at times last year. Just talk a little bit about your assessment of Mac Jones.
I saw him in high school. He played at the Bowles school, went out and saw Bowles and Raines. They used to play some legendary games. I saw him in high school. My best friend in the world. We went to 2 or 3 games. I'm far from a quarterback coach, but we watched him, and he had committed to Kentucky. Remember, he was going to Kentucky, SEC, but not power SEC. We talked, and then he had kind of switched over to Alabama late in the year. We caught a playoff game, and I was like, man, this guy's not Alabama level. He is one of those system-looking Alabama quarterbacks. He actually played. I know he threw a couple pick sixes. Don't get me wrong. In the Iron Bowl, I thought he played decent. I think he's got to pick up his play. Shane, the funny thing about Alabama last year, though, was they went 11-2. That's a down year for Alabama. They didn't play Alabama defense. They gave up a lot of points. Can Alabama bring that defense back? Dylan Moses comes back, but boy, now they gave up a lot of points to LSU. Auburn scored a lot, but 2 of them were pick sixes. But boy, Alabama, you could move the ball on Alabama last year a lot better than you have in 15 years. I think Bama's got to shore up that defense. They'll have enough offense. They cycle receivers. Waddle and those guys now will be the 1 and 2, and they'll bring in 2 or 3 guys behind them. Najee Harris came back, which surprised me. Alabama brings a great offensive line back, but Bama's got to tighten up that defense.
I agree 100% with that, and it's interesting because the head coach, that's his side of the ball.
Yeah.
Terry, when you look at the conference, is there one team that you think in your mind that could surprise some folks this year?
Now or never with A&M. My God, it's now or never with Texas A&M. I'm not one of the 200% Tennessee is going to be great. I think Tennessee has improved. I love Tennessee's offensive line. They've got 5 stars all across, but could be, if Kellen Mond could ever, and you and I, neither one of us like his lack of consistency. A&M now or never. Keep an eye on those guys. Their schedule backed off. Keep in mind, what about their schedule last year? I know they never won one of the big games. Not only did they catch, what did they have? Clemson. Of course, you've got Alabama, and they had that murderer's row schedule. And, oh, by the way, the LSU team ended up winning the national title. So maybe A&M now or never would be that team.
When you look at the national landscape, obviously it's the same cast of characters. It
Sure.
seems like, Clemson, Ohio State, whoever else. Is there one dark horse team that, depending on their schedule, guys they have returning, that you think could be in that mix for the 4-team playoff?
Yeah, can I say Florida? Florida's one. Florida's sitting there. They're going to come out in that area, that 6-7, that 6-7 ranking. I think Florida's one of those teams that could be there. Trying to think through. As you said, the cast of characters is pretty much stamped out. Ohio State's going to be so good. Clemson's going to be, you got to move them ahead. Florida, in terms of surprise, crazy surprise. I love what's going on at North Carolina. I don't know if they could make that big of a jump. I love that quarterback, but gosh, Shane, I hate to sound so homery, but Florida's probably that team. I don't think many people are going to pick them in the Final Four, but they're that team hovering 6, 7, 8, somewhere around there, that if, the ball bounces right in this game and the flags don't fly against them in that game, Florida could be that team.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk NFL just for a minute. I know you're a college guy, but, you live there in Jacksonville. You follow the Jaguars. What is the latest? We can follow Twitter or whatever. Do you think the NFL is kind of waiting to see how the NBA and Major League Baseball turn out as well?
Yeah, I think the NFL is the big boy, certainly. But Shane, I can't see the biggest of the big boys, the NFL. I can't see them playing if 2 weeks before MLB and the NBA abort. I can't see them playing. And I know those are adults and it's different, but I just can't see the NFL just being the one eye on an island out there playing. So yes, I think the NFL, I think we all need the guinea pigs right now are Major League Baseball and the NBA. If they were to abort before they start or get started a week or two and then shut it down, I don't see how I think the public wouldn't even like that. We want our football. We need our football. But boy, if those 2 major leagues cut it down, stop it, don't start it, I don't see how the NFL could say, hey, damn the torpedoes, we're going ahead. We're a one-off and we're doing our own thing. To hell with science, to hell with everybody.
Did you see the report that the NFL was referring to, that they may have their fans sign these waivers? Did you see that?
No, did not.
Yeah, it was something about, I just kind of scanned it briefly. But on the field, what do you think about the addition of the New England Patriots adding Cam Newton?
Well, aren't you happy he went to Belichick? I want to see what Belichick. Belichick does something with everybody. My goodness, I wouldn't bet against it. I wouldn't bet against that marriage working out because, the mad scientist, he rarely misses. In terms of now he can miss on a guy or two that really they don't make it on the field. It just didn't work out. He took a flyer on a guy, but if they stay in his system and they get on the field, it seems to work out. I can't wait to see how that plays out.
Yeah, Josh McDaniels does a good job calling plays and scheming.
Sure.
Let's talk about the Jaguars. It looks like Gardner Minshew is their guy.
Yeah.
Do you like how he played last year? Do you think he can be an everyday starter in the NFL?
As you said, I don't dive in and watch every play on the edge of my seat, but certainly I watched a ton of the Jaguars. My thought is a lot of his successful plays, Shane, and Lord knows you spent over a decade in that league. A lot of Minshew's successful plays were the play broke down, his hair was on fire, and it was kind of a Chinese fire drill, and it worked out quite a few times. I don't know if you can make a living at that in that league. Can he execute the play? Now, he was running for his life at times, but man, he made a lot of sandlot plays. And Shane, I think sandlot plays catch up with you in that league. I got to see more traditional quarterback play than Johnny Manziel type play.
Yeah, Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Visit them at peachlanddental.com. Terry, a couple more minutes with you. I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but just staying with the NFL, but a couple of guys that just came out of college football, Joe Burrow and Tua. Which one of those you think is going to be the better pro quarterback?
Well, here's my stance, and I'm in the minority with Tua. I love Tua. When he was in college, he made plays. I don't know if it's because he's left-handed. I think Tua. I don't love Tua's arm. Everybody says he's got a strong arm. It looks like he's got a pop gun arm. I think he's small, and I don't love his arm. I would lean toward Burrow. I think Burrow's got. I think Burrow's got that mix. I talked about the busted play. I think he's got enough busted play, improv, kind of Brett Favre in him. But I think he's fine standing up tall in the pocket and letting the play out. If I bought stock right now, I would buy stock in Burrow over Tua.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've said all along, and this is high praise, and I could be eating crow, but
yeah,
he has Tom Brady's ability in the
yeah,
pockets, accuracy, composure, moving around just in the little small area, but he's extremely athletic, which
yeah.
Brady isn't. And so, usually quarterbacks that go to Cincinnati go there and die.
Yeah.
Hopefully the poor kid has a pretty good career.
And Shane, I don't know what's around him there. I mean, Lord knows he was playing college football with NFL receivers, with a special running back, at least at the college level. Edwards-Helaire, Lord knows, Joe Burrow overshadowed him. Edwards-Helaire had a probably New York worthy, Heisman Trophy worthy type at least go to New York season. He had a monster year. So Burrow had a ton of talent. I don't know what he's got in Cincinnati. Probably not much because they drafted #1.
Yeah, that's true. Last thing for you. CJ Henderson, Florida Gator, is a first round pick for the Jags. People in Jacksonville excited about having CJ there?
Absolutely. It sounds like he's got to go win the job, wink, wink. He's going to play cornerback, I think, from day one at the cornerback position. I will say, Shane, they're real high, real high on Henderson. I love him. He's long. I love the way he never gave up. His 3 years at Florida, you could put a highlight tape of not giving up on a play. How many times did he run diagonal across the field and chase a guy down that was running free, that wasn't his responsibility? Boy, it's easy just to go, that guy's going to score. He chased a lot of guys down. I like his length. He's long, and that helps in that league. They're real high. But getting back real quick to the Jaguars, it's kind of gloom and doom around here. I will tell you that. They're not expecting much. Even the media boys really have to stir it up to okay, if this happens and that happens, and if Haley's Comet goes by, and if everything happens, they could scrap out 7-8 wins. I mean, they're really reaching. It's gloom and doom. There was a real ugly, I think, article that came out. It might have came out last night too. I was listening to my buddy Prosser on radio, and I think it came out. The gist of it is the last couple of years, probably the terribly run organization that the Jaguars are. It supposedly really lambasted the off-field stuff, and what wasn't pretty. But yeah, they are very high on CJ Henderson. I think he's going to get get that one side of the field, and they're going to say, go cover some people from day one.
Last thing for you, Terry. Tell everybody you got a new little project that you're working on this fall.
Yeah, we're really excited. Obviously, my show that I've owned and hosted for 4 years, College Sports Today, we are looking to revamp and really expand the show, and we're looking at revamping the show. It will be College Sports Today with Spurrier, Matthews, and Norvelle. We are going to add Coach Spurrier as a permanent guest on our show Mondays and Fridays. The show is on at noon. Shane Matthews, you will be one of our permanent guest co-hosts as well. So we're really excited. We've been putting this thing together, Shane, for a good 6-8 months, and it's been difficult. But we'll have a studio set up there in Gainesville Monday and Friday at noon. College Sports Day with Spurrier, Matthews, and Norvelle, scheduled to start Monday, August 3rd. Shane, thank you for letting me get that out. People can follow our show now. Just like the Facebook page, College Sports Today, and or the YouTube channel, College Sports Today. And Shane, this is going to be tough. We were actually scheduled to start the show this coming Monday, July 6th, because that was scheduled to be 1 week before SEC Media Days, July 13th, and all that obviously has been blown up. So we are looking at a Monday, August 3rd start, and I can't wait to hear you, Coach Spurrier. Obviously, we're going to talk Gator football, but the show is open for them. I mean, it's College Sports Today. I can't wait to hear Coach Spurrier breaking down games, Georgia, Alabama, and Shane Matthews busting down quarterback play on Monday after a big weekend, and your stories and Coach Spurrier's stories. I can't wait. My job's going to be to let you guys go, man, and talk ball.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to it, Terry. Appreciate you joining the show today. Stay safe out there, my man, and we'll talk to you soon.
We'll be in touch, Shane. Thank you, buddy. See you.
Yes, Terry Norvelle join us on the Titan MR hotline. At Center State Bank, we put business first. We are the largest community bank in the state of Florida, and understand that small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. Center State has 5 convenient Alachua County locations to serve you better. Center State Bank, member FDIC. We're going to take our first time out of the program here. When we come back, we'll be joined by Nathan Whitaker, talking about playing for the head ball coach back in his days at Duke and all the wonderful books that he has written. You're watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
Time out! Time out! Hey! Time out! Time out! Time out! There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Area Rug Masters, your #1 choice in Gainesville for all your area rug cleaning services. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, The Digital Mortgage Guide, Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank, Gator Bait Media, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Miapa Latin Cafe, Gators Dockside, Aikido America Martial Arts and After School, Doreen Weeby Realtor Caldwell Banker MM Parish, Radware, Style Cuts, Wrap Spot, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Chris Doring Mortgage, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Darshakau Insurance, and Pomodoro Cafe. If you are interested in promoting your business on this show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the Advertise button or call Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
He's looking, still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown.
Welcome back to a Thursday edition of Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. I want to thank Terry Norvelle from College Sports Today joining us to talk about college football. We're going to switch gears now. We're going to go to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by Nathan Whitaker. Played college football and baseball at Duke University and has written some big-time books for Tony Dungy and Tim Tebow. Good morning, Nathan. How are you?
Good morning, Shane. I'm doing great. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad you could join us. Let's go back. You grew up here in Gainesville. You were an Eastside Ram. You played baseball and football over there. And obviously, you're by far the smartest guy that's ever been on Pod Up with Matthews in the morning. Okay. Because we'll get to all the schools that you went to, but you decided to attend Duke University. Just walk us through that process, why you chose Duke, and how it was being a two-sport athlete there.
Right. Well, I was listening to Drew Copeland on your show yesterday, and Drew and I've talked. We grew up within a quarter mile of each other. So me, Drew, the Muschamp family, and of course I was younger than them, and I wasn't allowed to ride my bike across 16th Avenue, so I never met them. But my wife said, of course you're trying to now cling to the fact that you live near those guys. But I went to Eastside and played there, and was recruited to play baseball. Actually signed there to play baseball, and had a chance to go to some Ivies, but Duke was kind of the biggest program that looked at me. And ironically, the baseball coach and then the football coach, I was recruited as a kind of a preferred walk-on type thing. I was recruited by Terry Bowden, who was the offensive coordinator at the time.
Okay.
And so before I arrived at Duke that summer, both the baseball coach and the baseball coach was fired, football coach resigned. So both of the coaches I thought I was going to play for, I didn't. And of course, in football, that worked out amazingly well because the Duke athletic director hired a guy who was out of work, Steve Spurrier, to be the head football coach at that point. So anyway, it was kind of serendipitous that I ended up with another Gainesville guy that, having grown up here, just thought Coach Spurrier walked on water.
Well, how was it, because you got him early in his coaching career, and he did wonders for Duke University in football. I mean, they won their first ever ACC championship that year that they beat Clemson. Just talk a little bit about what it was like playing for a young Steve Spurrier.
Yeah, so there were a couple of things that stood out to me. One was you talk about him being young, and I have a feeling he still feels very, very young to me, certainly at heart when I see him and hear him. But he would jump out in the middle of, and I know he did this when you had him then. I tell people we coached him up and then handed him off to you guys. But he would take over any part of practice that if the quarterbacks weren't throwing the ball where it needed to be thrown, he'd jump under center. If I, as a punter or a kicker, he punted for the 49ers in the NFL. And of course he kicked the famous field goal here at Florida to beat Auburn. And so he could do most anything on a football field. So I remember one day we're trying to do onside kicks, and footballs don't always fly where you want them to fly, as their shape isn't conducive to so it's sailing off into the woods over by the Duke practice field as I'm kicking it, and it's kind of doing this in the air. And Coach Spurrier says, "Nate, that's not what I want." And he jumps in and does it and hits the guy right in the chest, and the guy drops it. I'm like, oh my gosh, how does he come in cold and do this? So he was not afraid to, of course, jump in and do anything that needed doing. The other thing that I think we saw, and I don't know if we saw more of it than you guys saw, or if this was a part, but I felt like he was approaching us as professionals, because his prior head coaching job was with the Tampa Bay Bandits in the USFL, and then he was out of work for a year when that league folded, and then he came to Duke. And so we had 2-team rules: don't embarrass Duke, your family, or yourself, and then don't wear hats inside. And so beyond that, it was kind of take care of yourself, practice like you want to play on Saturday. And he was very, he was very excitable on game days and at practice at times, but also very, here's what we're going to do. It's a plan. We're going to follow the plan, and then it's going to work on Saturday.
So you graduate with high honors from Duke University. You end up going to Harvard Law School. Just talk a little bit about, first of all, how difficult was it? We all know how great the academic institution is at Duke University, but you played 2 sports. So how did you manage your academics and playing baseball and football?
So, one is that it was certainly a situation where, not being the smartest guy in the room ever, and certainly not at Duke, I was thrilled that there were folks who gave me good advice along the way, and certainly had a lot of help from my parents and others. But I never missed class. I tell people now, 80% of success is just showing up. That if you show up and do what's expected and get things turned in on time, that certainly helps a lot. I only played baseball my first year. I told you the coach got fired. So I played 1 year of baseball. and then continued on in football, which certainly helped because baseball is a crazy schedule and overlapping with football didn't help. But basically, it was a huge help to just kind of do what was expected when it was expected, and that gave me some good skills for later on. And I was fortunate enough. I think Harvard thought they were going to get this big strapping football player, and they thought, okay, this is great. This will round out our class. And instead, they got the skinny backup kicker. So I'm not sure that they weren't a little bit disappointed when I showed up in Cambridge, but it was a good experience nonetheless.
And then you got involved once you were done there. You got your law degrees. You started working for the Jaguars. You worked for the Buccaneers. Did you always want to get involved with professional sports in some capacity?
I thought so. I wasn't sure it was professional sports. Actually, before I landed the job with the Jaguars, I interviewed with the NCAA, and it was for an enforcement position. And I thought, having grown up in Gainesville in the 80s, I knew pretty much all there was to know about NCAA enforcement and investigations and the like. But went through those, and it was interesting to hear a couple of the folks late in the day. And I'm by nature not very, I'm adverse to conflict. I'm a people pleaser. And the last two guys I interviewed with, I don't know if they had regret about some of the things that had happened in Gainesville with Galen Hall and others. But you could tell it weighed on them, that the real life ramifications of their job was hard for them. And so I had this great interview. And at the end of the day, I thought, this is probably not the right spot for me. And so I was fortunate enough to land a job with the Jaguars. And then from that point forward, I really thought maybe I had a path. I thought, I'm not a great athlete, and I had this great opportunity to parlay that into a Duke education. And then I'm not that smart, and was able to parlay that into going to Harvard. And so I thought maybe there's some plan where I'll become a GM, and actually had a chance along the way to become an assistant GM in Chicago when Jerry Angelo went up there, and but was blocked by the Buccaneers from leaving, and had a chance to go to Seattle in a similar role, and by then was starting to think about writing books. But it's interesting how you kind of think, all right, here's clearly the trajectory of what's going to happen, and then one thing or another pops up, and that ends up not being the plan at all.
We're speaking with Nathan Whitaker on the Technomore Hotline. So Nathan, when you get down to Tampa, I think this is when you probably got you got to know Tony Dungy quite well. And so, as you mentioned, what made you decide to write a book, you and Tony Dungy together?
So yes, I arrived for Tony's last year. Tony tells everybody we worked together for 2 years, but I have to remind Tony it was one really, really, really long year. And so I was there for Tony's last year, and of course, all the stories and all the things we know about Tony, about the how thoughtful he is and how generous and kind, and his kids are always in the office, and it was just this wonderful family-friendly environment, and the work-life balance, all those things that were happening. And so I wanted to show part of where, and not to jump ahead too far, but a couple years later, after working for John Gruden for a couple of years, I was reflecting on that and thinking how the private Tony is just like the public Tony. And that could help a lot of folks to know that you can be successful, you can have all these worldly things that may or may not be the appropriate markers of a life well lived, while at the same time actually not losing sight of the values that do truly matter, family and faith and the other things. So that was kind of where the idea generated, was during that year where it was, Tony, it was rumored he was going to be fired. And so it was very stressful on the rest of us. And it never showed with Tony, that Tony said, look, it's my job to coach. It's God's job to decide where I coach. So if it's not in Tampa, that's fine.
You're right. Tony Dungy is the most level-headed football coach I've ever seen in my life. Did you ever see him at a practice or during a game get upset at all?
He really didn't. One of the things that he shared when we were writing the book together was how he used to blow up at things, and he used to get all worked up. And one of the things he told me was, he realized his dad told him, what are you doing to make the situation better? And so during these blowups, were you actually accomplishing anything? And he realized as a coach with and nobody knows better than you that the headphones only come on for 15 seconds in between plays, and you've got to get the play in. And Tony said, if I'm yelling at the official, I've lost that entire time to talk to my quarterback or whatever it is. So Tony worked very hard for a lot of years to control his emotions and try to channel that towards something positive. So no, I never really saw him get upset at all, at least demonstrably.
So in Tampa, like you said, you were with Dungy and John Gruden, like night and day.
Right.
The way they coach. Just talk a little bit about, I mean, both tremendous coaches, but just talk about the differences between those two guys.
Right. And just to back up one coach, I was in Jacksonville with Tom Coughlin. So I went Coughlin, Dungy, Gruden. So it was really kind of like having whiplash to go back and forth between those. John Gruden, great guy, fiery, emotional. And one of the things that I think really helped the year he took over and we won the Super Bowl in his first year was that he and Monty Kiffin would just go at it every practice. And so our practices were unbelievably intense because John was screaming at the offense and Monty screaming at the defense. And so it was, I don't know how sustainable that was to do that year after year for the guys. But at least for that first year, there was certainly a ton of passion. And, it was definitely a different experience to have John and that emotion. And that emotion came out with us in the offices. I mean, I'd be sitting in my office and we wouldn't have signed a guy, or he didn't like the way contract negotiations were going or something like that. One year we were signing a receivers coach and John walked in my office and I'm trying to figure out the numbers with the guy and telling him, I'm not sure we can go that high. And John walks in and went, "This is my guy, pay any price." I thought, John, you're not helping here. But anyway, John was you never had to guess where you stood with John. You didn't either with Tony, but it took a little while to realize that his quiet demeanor was just actually an example of who he was as well.
So let's talk about in 2007, the book Quiet Strength. It's #1 on the New York Times bestseller. First of all, how long did it take you to write this book?
So I had actually been trying to talk Tony into it. I got fired by Bruce Allen when he brought in a new front office in Tampa. So I worked for Bruce for 8 days and got fired in 2004. So for 3 years, I tried to talk Tony into writing a book. And Tony kept saying, "Don't need a book about me. Nobody cares about me. I'm not sure I have anything to share." So finally, as you know, his son died in late 2005. And then 2006, they won the Super Bowl. And so I knew Tony well, and that helped as background. But we wrote the book in 24 days. And once Tony was on board, he said, if we're going to do it, let's get it out before the season starts. Because once the season starts, I'm going to be tied up with that, and I'm not going to want to promote a book, and that won't be fair to the Colts. And so we cranked it out and wrote it during March. One of the things that helped, so I'd never written a book before. I had no idea what I was doing and no idea what couldn't be done. So I was like, okay, I got a month. We can do that. And divided 60,000 words by 30 days and thought if I write 2,000 words a day, we'll be done. And it was a huge help. I had my dad, who's an attorney here in town. I would send him pieces as I was writing them and he'd clean them up. And then we'd send them to Tony. And Tony's mom taught English for 20 years. And so Tony would go through everything line by line. He'd rework things. He'd rewrite it. And it was fantastic. So by the time we were done, it was almost 100,000 words in 24 days. Just a remarkable experience.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So that was your first book. What's the normal time on writing a book? Y'all had to cram for 24 days, but what's the normal time in writing a book?
Usually you've got 6 months to a year, something like that, to write it. And then it comes out another year later. So it was all so compressed to be, and the publisher asked, is the book complete when we first were doing the contract? And I said, no, it's in progress, but it's not finished. And by in progress, I had written 5 pages. So it was technically in progress. It just wasn't that far along. And so it was a great leap of faith, but for the publisher and everything else to fall into place in 4 months was really remarkable.
And then you ended up writing a book with Tim Tebow. Now, did you do that in 24 days?
No, that took a couple of months. And we had to work around his schedule. He was in his first year with the Broncos when we started. So I would fly out on Monday nights and stay with Tim and his brothers who were living with him out there in Denver. And we'd spend all day Tuesday, or he'd work out and do stuff in the mornings, but then we'd spend a lot of Tuesday together, the players off day. And then I'd fly back to Gainesville on Wednesday. And so did that for several weeks. And then we started writing and were able to complete it in the spring.
Brian here on Facebook Live, brought to you by Meldon Law, where you matter most. He says Nathan is a great part of the Gainesville community. He wants to know what book is next.
That's a good question. I've been talking to some folks. May have a thing or two that unfortunately haven't been announced yet, but I'm always looking for if he's got any ideas. I'd certainly be willing to listen. So anyway, my wife keeps telling me I need to write fiction, which I've been talking about and thinking about for a while. So we'll see.
Were you with the Bucks when they won a Super Bowl?
I was.
Yeah.
I
So
was.
we got a text here from Joe on the Titan MR text line. He wants to know, what do you do with your Super Bowl ring?
So I probably wear it far more than I should. I wear it during speaking engagements, and every now and then if I'm dressing up in black tie or something, and I'm a little bit of the shrinking violet in a room, so that helps to break the ice when I've got that thing on. I didn't wear it this morning. I was thrilled to just have a reason to set an alarm and shower today, but I didn't wear it today. But I do wear it a fair amount.
Speaking of your speaking engagements, you do a lot of public speaking. Talk a little bit about that and what you speak on.
Yeah, I speak on. I've been fortunate to do all. After Tony's first book, we've done another 6 books, and included among those are books on leadership, books on teamwork. The premise being that you can treat people well. In fact, you should treat people well and mentor them and lead them for their benefit as a way to increase your leadership capacity and the good you can do. And so I've gotten to do a bunch of corporate events to talk on leadership, also do some motivational speaking where I talk about my path and that I thought I was cut out to be this general manager in the NFL, and that door got slammed shut and ended up in a whole new way of impacting folks. And then also speak on teamwork. Our most recent book was on teamwork, so I was able to go up to the University of Maine and speak 5 times and speak at Duke and William and Mary and other college programs. And so those are fun. I've got a speaking engagement next week that was unfortunately not in person in this pandemic. My wife was pulling for it to be in person, but it's with a bunch of athletic directors of European schools. And so it's a Vienna-based conference that I'll be speaking at from Gainesville. Maybe next year it'll be from Vienna. But it's been fun to go out and speak and do those things.
We got another Facebook Live question here, brought to you by Meldon Law, where you matter most. Dan wants to know, what does Nathan do when he gets writer's block?
So one thing is that deadlines really are a huge help with writer's block, and you just can't afford to get it. But the other thing I do that's probably been the most helpful is that I'm a big outliner. And some people talk about letting the story flow or whatever. And I really almost turn it into a paint by numbers, where I've got, like when I talked to Tim, I talked to his, and one of the things that was unique to Tim versus Tony is when I talked to Tony and got his story, it was primarily just Tony. I spoke to his wife some, and I knew him well and had talked to some coaches, but it was primarily Tony who told me things. With Tim, his parents taught him at a very early age not to talk about his accomplishments. And it was like pulling teeth with Tim. So I ended up having to sit down with his brothers and with his dad to tell me some of the things he had done in high school and other things that had happened. So I end up with hundreds of pages of notes, hours of recordings. And so I take some time to put all that in order and outline it. And so by the time I sit down to write chapter 1, I know what 5 stories are going in there. I know what 2 themes I'm going to hit, and that one of those themes is going to carry over to chapter 2, which is these 4 stories. And so that really helps a ton with writer's block, Dan, so that I'm able to actually go through and just kind of, again, paint by numbers. And I probably shouldn't pull back the curtain and show you that there's no wizard. But at least for me, it's a very straightforward process.
At Celebration Points, where the Gators come to celebrate, with premium brands like Bass Pro Shops, Starbucks, Regal Cinemas, and coming soon, the HBC's new restaurants, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, and Visor's Rooftop Bar. We will see you at Celebration Point. Fred text on the Titan MR text line, Nathan, you and your family dress in different themes on Facebook, and it's the talk of the town. Can you tell us more about that?
So we started, my wife, when the pandemic hit, my wife, Amy, also another Gainesville native, she said, we ought to do theme nights. and we had just come off of going on the rock boat that Sister Hazel hosts a cruise every year, and so it was 5 theme nights doing that and dressing up. And so my wife said, as a family, we had to do theme dinners. And so we took a picture that first night and put it on Facebook and got a ton of likes. And so the second night we did another theme night. And so sporadically for however long the lockdown lasted, we posted pictures most every night. And TV20 here locally ended up sending a reporter over. And we went out to the Thomas Center and did a formal theme night at the Thomas Center and had fun with that. So it ended up kind of growing into this fun theme night thing. And it turns out that we've hung on to more Halloween costumes than we realized we had. And we were repurposing things out of each other's closets. And so it was fun. But thankfully the lockdown ended and we didn't have to think of any more themes. So it was fun while it lasted, but then we tapped out.
Joe on the Titan MR text line wants to know which organization, the Jags or the Bucks, did you prefer working for?
So totally different animals. My role was expanded in Tampa. And so that makes it hard to compare in that in Tampa, they were really grooming me to be a general manager down the line. I was working for Rich McKay, who was the GM at the time. Rich is also an attorney, also clerked for the same federal judge that my dad and I did. So I'd known Rich for years. And so Rich sent me, when we played the Falcons, he sent me over to Georgia Tech to do scouting. And they sent me up to Duke one time to do scouting. And so they were teaching me how to do the personnel side of the business. So that was a lot of fun. And that year with Tony, of course, was stressful, but then was great to have my family around a lot. When it changed with Gruden, I could still have my family around. We just kind of had to have earmuffs over the kids at times around the office. But anyway, I really enjoyed my time at Tampa because the role was expanded. Jacksonville, amazing people. You have Mark Brunell on the show this week. Mark's unbelievable. So to have Mark around and Tony Baselli and Kyle Brady and those people to just hang around with was great. But it was a much more high stress environment in Jacksonville. Even when we went 14-2, amazing year, lost in the AFC Championship game. And one of my coworkers said, it was so fun to go 14-2. And I never would have thought, he said, I never would have thought going 14-2 could have been so stressful and so agonizing. And it really was just a different environment. It was tough at times, but.
Got another Facebook Live question here for you brought to you by Meldon Law. Comes from Doreen. She wants to know, what was your favorite family theme that you posted on Facebook during the pandemic?
Well, we had a bunch of fun ones, and we had one where my daughter dressed up as Freddie Mercury and some other things that were a lot of fun. I guess my favorite might have been when we reenacted the Breakfast Club, and the iconic picture of them in front of the lockers, and so I ended up being Molly Ringwald for that. So that was fun and caught everybody off guard. The other fun part about that picture was that we don't have 5 people in our family, so we had to take a skeleton and dress it as the 5th person. So anyway, that we had some fun themes. Thanks, Doreen.
Yeah, Jasmine says, Nathan, our community is so fortunate to have you and Amy and your children here. Much love for your group. That's brought to you by Meldon Law. So, Nathan, I always ask guys that play for Coach Spurrier, and obviously you didn't play long for him, but I mean, and you know him in town. You got any great Coach Spurrier stories? People love to hear stories about him. Yeah,
so I do have one that jumps out. So he was there my first 3 years. And so it was my second year at Duke. I'm still the backup kicker, still the backup punter. And we're going to play Northwestern. And Northwestern at the time played on turf. And so it's Thursday afternoon and we go over to our turf practice field. And as you remember, turf back in those days was hard as rock, awful. And it had poured all day. And Coach Spurrier was bound and determined to get outside and get on the turf. And so it let up a little bit. We ran out, we get on the turf, it starts to rain again, and we're going through the special teams. And our starting punter at the time, Anthony Dilwig, ended up playing in the NFL for a number of years, was also our starting quarterback. So Anthony's punting, and we go through we're doing a punt drill, and the end's coming around, and it's like a terrible movie where the guy rushing slips and he hydroplanes across the turf, and we're all watching, and he just keeps going and going, and he ends up hitting Anthony's plant leg.
Oh.
And it just looks terrible. And everybody's, mouths are open and they're horrified. Everybody except the backup punter, who's thinking, how bad's he hurt? So Anthony gets up, and you can hear Coach Spurrier's voice. Hooksy, you can't do that. You can't hit him. And the guy who slipped said, well, Coach, there's no footing. You can't help but run into somebody. And Coach Spurrier pauses and says, well, then get Nate in there if we're going to break somebody's leg. So that kind of shows my role. Anyway, I was able to survive that practice, but I thought, okay, well, now I see where I am on the pecking order.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's typical Coach Spurrier. Put the backup in there, let him get hurt.
Right.
Brian wants to know here on Facebook Live, brought to you by Meldon Law, where you matter most. What about writing a book about that federal judge?
Oh, clerking for Judge Hodges, who lives in Gainesville, he's a huge Gator. In fact, he got questioned one time as to why he hired me, because I had known him growing up, but he didn't ever interview me because he knew me growing up. And so somebody asked why he ended up hiring me, and he said, I've known Nathan his whole life. I saw him attend Duke, and then I saw him attend Harvard, but I realized his education was deficient and that me as a double Florida Gator could complete that. So I hired him. So Judge Hodges is probably the smartest person I've ever run across. So I think a book about him would be fascinating, but as intimidating as it was to write about somebody smart like Tony, I'm not sure I'm up to the task. Maybe with help, maybe Brian and others could help me pull that together.
Well, good deal. Like I said, you're the smartest guy ever come on Pot Up with Matthews in the morning. We appreciate you taking the time this morning, Nathan, for joining us. I hope you and your family stay safe. Enjoy dressing up, putting on some more outfits, and we'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Fantastic. Thanks, Shane.
That's Nathan Whitaker. Join us on the Titan MR hotline. We're going to take our final time out of the program. When we come back, we're going to wrap it up. You're watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
Time out. There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Area Rug Masters, your number one choice in Gainesville for all your area rug cleaning services. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, The Digital Mortgage Guide, Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank, Gator Bait Media, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Niapa Latin Cafe, Gators Dockside, Aikido America Martial Arts and After School, Doreen Weeby Realtor Caldwell Banker MM Parish, Radware, Style Cuts, Wrap Spot, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Chris Doring Mortgage, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Darshakow Insurance, and Pomodoro Cafe. If you are interested in promoting your business on this show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the advertise button or call Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
He's looking, still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown.
Welcome back to Pot Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. This Day in Sports is brought to you by Area Rug Masters. Don't fight your area rugs. Take them to Area Rug Masters. With their convenient curbside services, you will never need to go anywhere else. Call them at 352-448-5999. This Day in Sports, back in 2008, the Seattle Supersonics of the NBA moved to OKC. They become the Oklahoma City Thunder. The new owner, Clay Bennett, agrees to pay the city of Seattle $45 million to move the team. Folks, don't forget tomorrow, make sure you go follow us, like us on Facebook Live, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Tomorrow's show, we got Ben Garrett over from Ole Miss, covers right for the Ole Miss Spirit, talking about Ole Miss football and the state of Mississippi. And former Great Gator quarterback Noah Brandeis will join the program. Today's show is a wrap, brought to you by Wrap Spot. That's it, folks. Stay safe and make sure you tune in tomorrow. Take care.